Monticello is unique as a historic site in placing such emphasis on research and education with the establishment of a 78-acre campus called the Robert H. Smith International Center for Jefferson Studies. It's also been something of a pioneer in integrating the history of slavery into the history of the house and the life of Jefferson. And I wondered if you might like to expand a little, you started to touch on this at the end of your talk, on how the projects conducted here and some of the staff members were helpful in the research for this book.
Well, certainly Senator Stanton has been a great resource to me in terms of giving me information, talking about, sort of making me privy to things that were that I wouldn't have known anything at all about at the research center. The research library has certainly been helpful. One of the things that was marvelous was a new project, online project, the Family Letters Project, that the Papers of Thomas Jefferson have done. It's sort of putting up family letters that can be searchable, and they're easily searchable. To give you an example, when I wrote my first book, I was looking at, sort of reading Ellen Coolidge's letter to her husband about, in which she says that Sam Carr was the father of all of Sally Hemings' children. And I sort of thought that letter was a letter that was written for posterity, because it had, she was saying things to her husband that he would have known. Thomas Jefferson was a great character. He was a man who did, and it's like, he knows that. Why are you saying that to your husband? This is obviously something for posterity. When I was looking at that's as far as I got with it. When I was looking at the Family Letters Project, which allows you to search, to do keyword searches, so I typed in Sam Carr and Joseph Coolidge, and the name pops up, Colonel Carr, the name pops up, and it turns out that Joseph Coolidge knew Sam Carr. There are letters from them in the early 1830s where he's saying, thank Colonel Carr for the hams he sent us. Thank Colonel Carr for this. And if you've ever read the letter, you know that she says who Sam Carr, she tells her husband who Sam Carr is. But I would never, without the Family Letters Project, without being able to keyword search that, I would never have discovered that. That would have been a needle in a haystack kind of thing. And that's an important, that's an important thing to be able to see that, something, as I said, I'd had the hunch that this was something that was written, to sort of talk to people down the ages, but it becomes clear when she introduces her husband or describes to her husband a man that he knew very, very well. And as I said, I would never have found that without the keyword searches. So the Family Letters Project, certainly getting word, the project's talking about some of the recollections of descendants, things that you can kind of sort of hook onto that lead you down a particular path of research. That kind of stuff has been invaluable to me. Oh.
Now this is a question from the floor. What particularly makes you think that now is a good time for revisiting the story of the Hemings family?
Well, I guess the sort of questions that interviewers ask me all the time, or they've been asking me over the past week, is this a good time to be talking about this? And I guess we could put it out on the table because of the election. The possibility of electing a black man as president of the United States, a black man who is of mixed race. Here's the interesting thing about this book. People talk about Barack Obama that as if he was the first half black, half white person who was ever in America. And it's like, what do you think, what do you think has been happening over the past, 300 years? He is not the first mixed race person who's been in America, and it's not I hope the book will bring that out, make people sort of think, why is it that black people are all different colors? Why is it that, I can remember being in school, and one of those things where people ask you where your ancestors came from and so forth. And I remember a black person in my class saying that one of their great-great-grandfathers was Irish. I sort of kept my mouth closed about those kinds of things, but and people in the class were just, that's not right. You're a black person, you can't, and it's just, insane. So I think race is an issue that is of interest to people now. The question of what kind of nation the country is. I mean, this sort of notion, is this a white country? One of the things that I was saying at the beginning about this country's origins has always been white, black, and red. It's always been a mixture of things. I don't mean necessarily, not just mixing together, but living side by side. It's never been a white country. And with Obama running now, which has sort of brought race to the fore, I think that this is sort of an interesting historical moment to be talking about this, and maybe people can sort of reflect on that and not see him as such. Well, he's an anomalous figure. He's an amazing figure. I went to one of these. He graduated from law school a couple of years after me, and we have every 2 or 3 years these sort of every black person who's graduated from Harvard gigantic reunion, and he came and talked, and he's just sort of how whatever your politics are, he's just an incandescent personality. So he is. I don't want to say, when I say he's not an anomaly, he is. But in terms of his background and this, I think this book sort of, it'd be interesting to have people read this in light of this sort of thought that he is interesting or unique just because of his mixed heritage.